You know, these days my computer has kind of been hanging on a thread, just like me, so if you hear a lot of noise in the background, that's just my computer being annoying. Recently, a bunch of new albums dropped kind of all at once that I know I and tons of people have been anticipating for a long time, and I wanted to talk about all of these at some point, so I figured I'd just do them all in one video together. Those albums that I will be discussing and reviewing today are as follows: So Close to What by Tate McRae, Alter Ego by Lisa, Ruby by Jenny, and Mayhem by Lady Gaga. Coincidentally enough, all these albums share this dark dance pop vibe, with of course elements of other genres mixed in, like hip-hop, rock, synth pop, etc. They kind of all feel like artistic peaks for their respective artists in some way, not like this is their best work to date necessarily, but just like an evolution in some capacity, certainly. These are all banger albums, truly. None of these albums were disappointing in any way. In fact, most of these exceeded my expectations. And of course, there is subjective bias with everything. You know, for some of these albums, I was keeping up more with the singles and the promotion leading up to it than with others, but ultimately, I'm gonna do my best in this video to just give like overall summation thoughts on all of them as from like an outside lens as possible, but at the same time, this is my opinion. It's, you know, my review of it. Usually with album reviews, I like to talk more in depth track by track, but because this video is like 4 albums in one, to keep things moving, I'll just give you guys my overall thoughts on each album, how I feel about it, what are the vibes, some highlights, some pros, cons. Then I'll assign a numerical ranking, which might be difficult. All of these albums were very good. Trying to like sort out how I feel about them all at the same time was kind of difficult, but I'll do my best. And I will be giving a full tracklist ranking, which is going to be even harder, but I don't know, I like to rank things, as you guys know. But yeah, let's get into it and start off with...
But don't make me choose. I think you know what this is. I think you wanna.
So at the start of the year for my New Year's resolutions, one of them was that I wanted to stan a new artist this year. I do think the pop girl I need to start standing ASAP is Miss Tate McRae. After this album, I mean, it's kind of a done deal. This has really been on loop ever since it's come out, and I don't think an album has infected me in a while the way this one has. It took a few listens, but I'd say it has the same infectious charm as albums like Renaissance by Beyonce, 1989 by Taylor Swift, Lust for Life by Lana Del Rey. Maybe not quite as good as those in my opinion, but having that same dance pop, synth pop energy that really just takes you over once you lean into it. I think Tate McRae really has mastered her sound right here. You've got a little bit of Britney, you've got some Carly Rae Jepsen, some really standard techniques and genres in here that other artists are doing. Like, yeah, sure, it's not pushing forth the boundaries of pop music necessarily, but I think the familiarity of the sound works really well, especially for someone like Tate McRae, who's more establishing herself as a performer, a dancer, someone who makes fun upbeat bops and then just puts on an amazing show and gets you up on your feet dancing. That's kind of the persona she's creating right now, and she's doing a hell of a good job of it. And even amongst all that, there is still a really beautiful emotional core here about on-off relationships, situationships, you know, that kind of stuff. Also, this album cover, hello? Not only was she on the floor, my jaw was too.
I want you to this.
Is the entire album the gag that this album cover is? Well, no, not necessarily, but it's still really, really good. The more I listen to the album, the more I love it. Really, the highlight of So Close to What is the production. As I've been saying over and over again, it's fun, it's infectious, and a lot of that comes down to just how it sounds. You have to listen to this album with headphones. You just have to, because every song is ear candy. It's mixed and produced to perfection. Not just in the instrumentation, but also the way Tate McRae herself sounds. So many beautiful harmonies, electronic effects, vocoder, reverb. The producers did not come to play. They did what needed to be done. And I also think that is what allows Tate McRae to shine. There is something about her vocal texture that is very addicting and mesmerizing. I also think the singles from this album did a really good job of setting up what was to come. We got the sexual, raunchy side on Two Hands and Sports Car. We also got the more vulnerable side on It's Okay, I'm Okay and Revolving Door. And I think that back and forth really resembles the push and pull going on throughout this album, constantly revolving between feeling confident and unsure, between knowing where she's in the relationship and not knowing, you know, like a revolving door. And can we talk about that music video? Holy shit. Like, holy shit. This is what happens when an artist plays to their strengths. This is what you get. You get masterpieces like this. I think my only main criticism of Tate McRae's album and just her style in general is I can't really understand much of what she's saying.
If I were not up and then it went
That's not an inherently terrible thing. Again, her music is intentionally just about the vibes and about dancing along. But also, like, I want to understand what she's saying. She has some really powerful lyrics in this album, but that is also just her singing style. Overall, an album I will definitely keep coming back to. Nothing too deep or crazy or revolutionary, but honestly, who needs that when I'm having a blast? I'm gonna give this one an 8.3 out of 10. Again, I don't really know how to justify the exact number I give. It's kind of just whatever I'm feeling in the moment, which is probably how a lot of music reviews go. So here is my track list ranking. I've highlighted here the tracks that I consider to be my favorites, really the special standouts that I am frankly quite obsessed with. And I will definitely be giving Tate McRae's older music some more listens because I'm curious to see, her trajectory as an artist. Maybe I'll stan, maybe I'll go to her tour. I don't know, only time will tell. But let me know what you thought of the album, and we're gonna move right along to the next one.
Every city that goes, my city. Gold teeth sitting on a dash, she a rock star.
Next up, we have Alter Ego by Lisa. Now, this has definitely been one of my most anticipated albums of this year, mainly because I have been keeping up with every single single, yeah. From Rockstar all the way through Born Again. And truly, I was shocked to my core. I thought Lisa was absolutely taking it with this era. And honestly, I feel like the album did a good job living up to the name and sound established by the singles, in that she was jumping around a lot. That was one thing I noticed. I think that's one thing everyone noticed, is that these singles are very, very different from each other. Rockstar was like, hey, I can rap and dance and I can do hip hop. New Woman was, I can sing and write. Moonlight Floor was, I can do cutesy ballads. And Born Again was, I can do disco and vocals and dark pop. But that's kind of the point. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing when it comes to this album. Let's talk about it. Born Again as an opening track is a really interesting choice, but I think it's important because it sets up this idea that this is a new Lisa. She's being reborn out of the Blackpink era into a soloist era, more free, in a sense. But that also doesn't mean that she's entirely lost her old sound. There are a lot of songs on this album that are very reminiscent of La Lisa and Money and the vibes she has always given throughout her time on Blackpink. Meanwhile, there's also a lot of very brand new stuff that we get. I know when I first listened to Born Again, I was like shocked. I was like, damn, she's singing. She is for real singing. And then we get Rockstar, which is, what set up this whole era. And I love Rockstar. I'm a defender of Rockstar. It's more hip hop. It is more in line with what I think we know of Lisa. The vocals are simple. There's a lot of fast rap that's very like Lisa flow. It's dancey, there's a whole choreography for it. And I felt like this was kind of the epitome of her sound coming out of the Blackpink era. Like, I thought Rockstar really did a good job transitioning her in that way. And again, throughout the singles and throughout this whole album, Lisa does kind of continue to jump between various styles of hip-hop, electronic music, pop. She blends them together, she separates them, she includes a lot of other artists from various genres. And I think that has been kind of a complaint from people, is that it's almost too much. It almost sounds like she doesn't really know what she's doing. But to me, it still all feels like Lisa at the end of the day. This is still her album. Like, she's kind of proving that she is a jack of all trades. She can do all these styles and camouflage herself behind various tracks with other artists and be flexible without losing her identity as Lisa. That is really the main theme and idea here, and that's how I interpret Alter Ego. I don't really care too much about all the branding, marketing going on. There are other videos that I've seen that do a good job explaining why the alter ego concept is a little bit tricky in the Western world and why it might not work as well as Lisa wants it to. But for me, I'm just looking at the music, and I interpreted alter ego as like Lisa saying, hey, I can take on these various forms and do these various genres and still eat on all of them, which I feel like she does. Like, she does do a good job on this album. The most clear example of this theme is Elastigirl. Lisa quite literally sings about being flexible and able to take on various forms because she's just that good at what she does. Because of that, she's not able to really establish one solid brand for herself. Contrast this with Tate McRae, who we just talked about, how this album, So Close to What, really establishes her brand as a dance pop artist. Lisa definitely could do that, but she's trying a lot of things, and I think that's intentional. This is a debut album. She's still figuring out what exactly is best for her. And I feel like even then, nothing in this album sounds particularly awkward. You know, there might be some songs that just aren't as good as others, but nothing really sounds unnatural. The only thing for me was When I'm With You featuring Tyla, because that is pretty much a Tyla track featuring Lisa, not really Lisa featuring Tyla, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the track is really good, so you know, I'm not really complaining very much. I think New Woman is easily the pinnacle of this album. I think any discourse I've seen around Alter Ego agrees. Like, New Woman is probably one of the best songs I've heard in the last year. I don't think anything else on the album is quite as powerful, I would say, as New Woman. It's still good. There's still a lot of other great songs. And I do think the tracks that don't work as well on this album are the ones that are most reminiscent of, like, La Lisa Money era Lisa. I feel like we're a little bit past that now. Like, I think she is showing a lot more evolution on tracks like Rockstar, New Woman, Born Again. Not to keep mentioning those, but like, they're really good. So I think if she can maybe hone her sound in on the other tracks that worked really well, like I mentioned, maybe leave behind Money era and focus on what worked, I think she's gonna go super, super far. Here's my full album ranking. I might as well just put it out. But honestly, I've been enjoying this album a lot. Despite it being a little bit all over the place, all the tracks do still feel very Lisa. She's finding her sound, and I think that's great. I think it's really beautiful how she's embraced this era. You really can't deny just how much work has gone into this era. Y'all say album rollouts are dead, but I promise you they're not. You're just not paying attention. And I mean, she like literally just performed at the Oscars, didn't she? Like, she's taking the crown. She's gonna do what she feels is right to make her presence in the Western industry. And I am curious to see where she goes from here. I'm gonna give this one a 7.2 out of 10. And we're gonna move along to the other Blackpink soloist era to be talked about in this video.
Don't pause, take it in the course. Ooh, wanna rock with Jenny. Keep your head down, nails done like Jenny.
Ruby by Jenny is similar to Alter Ego by Lisa in a few ways. It's her first full-length debut studio album outside of Blackpink. It's an exploration of various styles and genres that the artist has done or maybe has wanted to explore throughout her career. There's an ultimate focus on self-discovery and new relationships. It features a lot of very high-profile artists you wouldn't expect to see, but that end up working really well. And most importantly, it's really good. Ruby by Jenny is incredible. I was genuinely surprised at how good this album turned out. And as I mentioned with Lisa's Alter Ego, I really kept up with the singles, and so I had very high expectations going into the album. Whereas with Jenny, I only knew Mantra. That's the only song I listened to before listening to the entire album. I listened to Mantra and it was like cute and fun, but it just felt very typical K-pop. And so I had a good time with it, but I wasn't like gagging, you know, with my jaw on the floor. And then I listened to the album, and you best believe there were multiple moments where I was in fact gagged. And I should have been paying more attention because honestly, I think the singles are some of the best tracks to come out of Ruby. Like Jenny is such a powerful, fun, egotistical anthem. Extra L being this really interesting, unique blend of Jenny and Doechii, who I really did not expect at all, but it has been on repeat. I'm so addicted to Doechii's verse. Zen is a very hard-hitting, powerful vocal track, and it's definitely one of the standouts, probably because it has this like Selena Gomez in the Scene type production on it that's just very immersive and very ominous, you know. Love Hangover is just so rich and delectable. Once again, guys, I really don't mean to hate on YG and Teddy Park and all of them, because like I do love Blackpink and everything they've done, but you cannot sit here and pretend like YG was not holding these girls back ever so slightly after seeing how they are absolutely thriving and shining as solo artists. Because honestly, in Blackpink, you would expect Jennie and Lisa to have pretty much the same style, but listening to Alter Ego and Ruby, they're very different. The way that Lisa really shined on disco and dance pop on Alter Ego, I think Jennie actually shines a lot more on R&B and like this kind of lo-fi chill pop sound. I don't know the best way to describe it. Some examples of what I'm talking about: Love Hangover, Damn Right, Filter, Soul City. These are bangers. These are bangers, and what's interesting about these songs is I just really didn't expect this kind of sound from Jennie. But it sounds so good, and not just that, she sounds so good. Like, Jennie's vocals really shine on this album. This is our first listen to a softer, more intimate Jennie, and it's so beautiful. Every song works. Every song on this album works. I think the only skip for me is probably Starlight toward the end of the album. You know, she had a little Taylor Swift moment there. Also, Twin as an album closer is fine. It makes sense. A lot of pop albums end on a more ballady, heartfelt track, but I wish it kind of hit a little harder.
Come on, it's gonna be fucking hard.
There's just such a unique feel throughout this album, honestly more so than any other on this list. And again, I think that's why this album shocked me so much, because Jennie is like the poster child of Blackpink. You know, the YG favorite, as everyone would like to say. And this album just goes to show even she, as the so-called favorite, has so much unlocked potential. Oh, I just love these girls so much. I can't wait to see what else they do. Here's my album ranking. Honestly, this one is probably subject to change just because I feel like every day I have a new favorite, and I can't wait to keep listening and see what else I continue to notice. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album a 9 out of 10. I truly think it does deserve that. It is very, very good. Also, please stop with the Rocky Irani comparisons. This flow was not invented by Pritham, who literally told y'all to shut up. Like, if y'all are gonna be mad, where are Nicki Minaj's credits?
Jenny. Said he got a friend for my homegirl, Lily.
Also, this now means I've talked about every Blackpink solo except for Jisoo's. I don't really have much to say about it. It was 4 songs, they were cute, nothing crazy, nothing bad. I will say her acting though, she is shining. I love this album cover, I love this music video. Not gonna hate on YG too much, let's just move on. Alright, last but certainly not least, we have Mayhem, Lady Gaga's highly anticipated 7th studio album. This album really feels like an ode to synth pop and dance pop, which of course dominated her music in her earliest days, like on The Fame and Born This Way, and we got more of it on Chromatica. But we also get a variety of other genres that have influenced Gaga throughout her career, like soft rock, funk, and other forms of EDM as well. Lady Gaga herself described this album as an amalgamation of various styles and genres of music that she loves, an exploration of darkness in a happy time. And you can really hear all those different influences, as tons and tons of people have already pointed out. There's some Madonna, there's some Prince, there's some Michael Jackson, even kind of some Taylor Swift vibes on How Bad Do You Want Me. But at the end of the day, it all still feels very, very cohesive. And like, I don't know, it's Lady Gaga. Like, she makes good music. One thing you can really feel from first listen on this album that makes it, I think, special and a little more interesting is the raw emotion embedded throughout it. There really is a profound sense of humanity here, what it means to grieve, to suffer, but also to live and be free. You know, all these things that are critical to the human experience, which I know sounds so incredibly vague. To quote Gaga, creating this album was like reassembling a shattered mirror. Even if you can't put the pieces back together perfectly, you can create something beautiful and whole in its own new way. I think that's a great way to think about this album. There's almost an unsettling, haunting tone to the entire album that still gives it a unique feel from what she's done before. It makes it darker and more mysterious. One thing that definitely persists throughout this entire album is the imagery and the motif of death, which is present in pretty much every single song, and that's part of what creates this very haunting, mayhem-like feel. There's also a lot of religious imagery here. There's mentions of sinning, churches, angels and devils, the Garden of Eden, of course, with a lot of the backing vocals and harmonies feeling very choiry and more resonant and reverberated than usual pop vocals, almost as if it's like a choir in a church. I do think first listening to this album was a little jarring because the singles gave this vibe of like exploring EDM in particular, with Disease almost having this kind of dubsteppy feel to it, being so loud and in your face, and then Abracadabra just being this sheer acid house psychedelic banger. The rest of the album almost feels more tame in comparison, if I do say so myself, but I think once you get past that and just take the music for what it is, it's still of course very good. I don't think I have any skips on this album. Like, every song is good, if not great. This album is also kind of making me a Die With a Smile stan, which I didn't really want to become that, but it also is very popular for a reason, and I do have to acknowledge that. So yeah, those are just kind of my scattered thoughts on Mayhem, but overall I've been having a great time with this album. Here's my track ranking. Shadow of a Man is just kind of eating up everything else right now and consuming every fiber of my being. It's really all I can think about these days. It is so, so good. I'm going to give this album an 8.8 out of 10, and that might be controversial because yes, that does mean I ranked Ruby higher, but I do think as of right now, Ruby is my favorite. It's just so cool. It's so, so good. You have to listen to Ruby if you haven't already. And who knows, this could definitely change over time. It only has been like 2 weeks with these albums. But yeah, those are my thoughts on these 4 albums. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know, of course, down below what you thought of any of them, of all of them, any other music you want me to talk about. I can't make any promises, but possibly expect the Dua Lipa discography ranking next. But that's going to be all for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!